many people, when they begin a new piece, dive straight in there and just have a go. They get the piece of music, they sit down with their instrument and they just try and get started. But invariably that leads to lots of mistakes that are hard to eliminate later. In this video today, I'm going to share with you some tips that I highly recommend that you do before you even attempt to play the first note of a piece. It's a quick win which will help you play with greater accuracy, and who doesn't want to do that? Hi, I'm Fiona from Learn Music Together, and I share tips that help adults grow and develop their practice skills. And if you enjoy my tips, please hit the subscribe button below this video. It helps the channel grow and you'll get notified every time I'm live or there's a new video shared. Now let's dive into that quick win that's going to help you achieve greater accuracy. Every time you practice, you should have a clear understanding of what it is that you're going to focus on and what it is that you're going to do. And it's important that we learn the notes accurately from the get-go. We want to avoid making mistakes wherever possible. It's so important that we input the information, that's what's called encoding, correctly the very first time we play. And when we just put the music on the stand and have a go, without any careful process behind that, we're likely to make mistakes. And those mistakes are hard to eliminate in the future. And even if we correct them in the short term, they're the kind of mistakes that when we play, maybe for a teacher in a lesson, they come back to haunt us. We may have not done them for a week or two, and all of a sudden we're back to playing that wrong note, or we're back to playing that rhythm incorrectly. And that's because we made mistakes right from the very start. So we're always wanting to make sure that we encode information accurately, and that when we play, we avoid making errors. To get off to the best start, you want to spend some time analysing your music and annotating your score. And I know for some this is a challenge because it's outside of your comfort zone. Many of you may have been taught, if you learnt as a child, not to write on your music, not to put anything other than pencil on music. But things have come on in the world of scientific research. There are many ways that we can help encode information. In fact, there are 7 types of encoding, and visual encoding is one of them, and it relies on using colour. Now, if you're one of these people who thinks doing this might take too much time, you'd rather get on and practice, I want to encourage you to change that mindset, because in the long term, it will really help you get better results. It's going to help you avoid making errors. So take the time to reassure yourself that the process I'm going to show you today is well worth your time and effort, because it's going to reap you greater rewards in the long run, and it's going to help you encode the information in a way that the brain can find those patterns and make connections when you start to physically practice the notes. And that's going to help your retrieval methods, which is what we rely upon to play the music accurately each time we come back to it in the future. So before I continue, let's just take a look at this quick question for a moment. How many phrases do you need to practice in order to be able to play this piece? So just take a moment to study the music on the screen. It's a well-known piece of music. You may recognise it. You'll notice that there's 12 bars of music. So you might be thinking, I've got 12 bars to learn. But here's why annotating your score is really beneficial. You'll see that the first 2 bars are exactly the same as these 2 bars. So we don't need to learn both of them, because if you've practiced the first 2 bars, you can already play bars 9 and 10. You'll also notice that bars 3 and 4 are the same as the last 2 bars. So again, that's cutting down our learning, but it gets better than that. Bars 5 and 6 are the same as bars 7 and 8. So there's actually only 3 2-bar phrases to learn. So rather than thinking we've got 12 bars of music to practice, we've actually only got 6 bars of music to practice. So within a very short space of time, I've just cut down my workload by 50% by just spending a few moments looking through the music to see if any of the bars repeat. And it's something I highly recommend you do. And you can colour code them just like I've done here. So the thing is, when we get a new piece of music and we just sit down and play it, we're unlikely to be able to identify any sections that repeat. And so what happens is you spend extra time learning bars unnecessarily, because you haven't made a mental note of which bars are the same. So your brain thinks that all of it is new information. So this is a great tip to do because it saves you duplicating things in your practice time. Let's look at another example. Here's an Allegro by Reinecke. So again, you can see I've started to mark on some of the bits that repeat. The first 4 bars are repeated, as you can see further down the piece in pink. And then the second 4 bars are also repeated in the final 4 bars. And you can see here that I've got a phrase that I've just highlighted in yellow, and that phrase is repeated not just once, but twice. So those 3 bars are the same. So you can see originally there was 24 bars in this piece of music, but I've actually only got 12 bars of different music that I need to practice. So again, I've cut down my workload by 50% before I've even started learning this piece. This always gets me so excited, and it's something that no matter what level you are, whether you're a beginner or you're much more advanced, you can use this technique to get a quick win very easily. Now there's also other things that you can do when you annotate your score. Again, we're always looking to cut down our workload, so let's have a look at some other ideas. You can see right now on the screen in pink that I've highlighted the start of each phrase, and that's because the rhythm is exactly the same. So maybe it's worthwhile before I start learning this piece of music to make sure that I can play that rhythm accurately. I could do that in some of my warm-up exercises. Maybe I play a scale using that rhythm. But you can see each phrase starts with 2 crotchets or 2 quarter notes and is followed by 4 quavers or 4 eighth notes. So again, learning that rhythm is saving me time because I'll be able to connect when I come to practice my bite-sized bits. I'll be able to connect that pattern in my brain, which will help speed up my learning. You can also see that all the quavers, all the eighth notes in this piece are either the notes C, D, E, F, ascending or descending. So there's only 4 notes every time I have those quavers, and they're always consecutive, either going up from C to F or coming down from F to C. Another thing that you might like to mark on your music is the dynamics. In this piece you can see that they alternate mostly between loud and quiet, forte and piano. There's just one diminuendo on the 3rd line. Again, making a note of this really brings that to my attention. I can now easily remember that the dynamics in this piece alternate in phrases. The first 4 bars are played forte, the second 4 bars are played piano. The following 2 bars are forte, followed by 2 bars piano, followed by 2 bars forte, etc, etc. I'm forming a little code to input into the brain that's making a better memory and something that I can connect to later on when I start practicing this music. It's going to sort of trigger off, oh yes, the dynamics alternate in 4-bar phrases at the start, and then in 2-bar phrases, and then in 4-bar phrases. So we're forming patterns that the brain can pull out more easily later on and connect to as we learn the piece. This really helps speed up the encoding process. I also highly recommend highlighting your key signatures and any accidentals within the piece. If there's one thing that I know is super frustrating, it's when we learn a piece and we've forgotten one of the sharps or one of the flats in the key signature. Now I can hear some of you saying that by highlighting it, it's cheating. Absolutely not. It really isn't cheating. We're enabling our brain to process that information easier, and in fact we're bringing it to our attention. We're helping it remember that it's important to look at the key signature. And I've actually found with my students that this improves their ability to sight read perhaps when they do exams, because they're well aware that the key signature is of great importance, and they're used to identifying the notes because normally they highlight them. And I appreciate when you do a sight reading test under exam conditions, you can't highlight the note. But doing this method on a regular basis really helps you find those notes quicker and easier, and that really helps when you're under pressure in an exam situation. And for many of you, you're learning for pleasure. So why not make the process easier if there's a way to do that? Now I know some of you right now will be putting up resistance to putting colour on your music. So I want to give you a few suggestions before we carry on as to how you can overcome this. The first, of course, is a really simple one. You could photocopy your parts, as long as you own your book, that's totally fine. And then you're not worried about, marking your book or destroying your book, as I've heard some people say. Another fantastic thing that I want to share with you is something called highlighter tape. I've got some here in different colours, and this highlighter tape is fantastic. It's reusable and you can just simply put it on your music. All you do is take a little bit of tape and put it on your music, and when you've done with it you can remove it. It's dead easy, it comes off, it doesn't tear or rip your music, and reuse it later on. Also a great addition if you want to write some notes on your music but don't want to mark it. You can get post-it note tape which comes in thin strips. This is fantastic for just putting a note at the top, perhaps that the key of the piece is in G major or whatever it may be. So I highly recommend, to overcome any objection to using colour on your music, that you invest in some highlighter tape and some strips of post-it notes. Because using pencil is not the same. Pencil is not a way of visually encoding information. Colour brings things to your attention much better than pencil. Pencil all looks the same, whereas colour pops out on the page. And you know, if you're one of those people who's going to tell me, I find this distracting, there's too much clutter, you don't have to highlight the whole page at once. Do it section by section as you're practicing your bite-sized bits of music. Spend some time before you physically practice that section, putting on your tape, and then you can move it further down the page as you go. I'll put a link in the description below to where you can get hold of some highlighter tape, and hopefully that will help you overcome any objections that you have. And of course, while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can get notified every time I release new videos. You'll also find it helpful to mark on any scale patterns that you can identify. Now, they might not be whole scale patterns, they might be part of scales, and it's also useful to put on any modulations. And if you're not sure of those two words, don't worry about it for now. It depends really on your theory knowledge. If you want to learn more about music theory in a way that you can apply it to practice, I've got a couple of courses, and again, I'll put some links below to how you can get on the wait list for those. If you're a bit further on, you might want to write down some chord progressions, and you might want to see if you can identify any compositional devices. So here's a minuet by Mozart. Let's do a little bit of annotating of the score. So you'll see that it begins in the key of C major, and at the end of the first line it's going through a little modulation towards E minor. It's only brief before it comes to a cadence in G major. After the repeat sign it continues in G major, and you can see there at the end it heads back to C major, although there is a hint of A minor in that final phrase. You'll also notice that the first two bars of the piece are repeated but a little bit higher in bars 3 and 4. We call this a sequence. Can you see how the pattern of the notes is the same, but bars 3 and 4 are higher? And at the start of the second half of the piece, you'll see that this pattern is used in imitation. Again, it's very similar to that used in bars 1 and 2, but it's kind of upside down. So instead of going, here the pattern goes. So we call that imitation. So it's worth marking on your music any patterns that are in sequence, any patterns that imitate, because again, this helps the brain form connections. You could make a note that the interval of a third is used frequently throughout this piece, and if you're a bit further on, you might make the connection that those thirds are often the tonic and median of the chord. You can see in my pink boxes that we've got a pattern of thirds ascending, and that might be a good pattern to practice in your warm-up. You can do scales in thirds. Here's one in C major. So by warming up with scales that are relevant to the music that you're learning, that also helps speed up the process. Now going back to those chords, if you're a bit further on, you might want to make a note of the chord progressions. You can see here we start on chord 1, and as I said, those thirds, you can see that it's the tonic note C and the median note E that is used in both hands. Again, you could make the connection that the right hand imitates the left hand, but the right hand is in quavers or eighth notes, whereas the left hand is in quarter notes or crotchets. Bar 2, the chord is chord 5, and again we're using the tonic and the median, and then it returns to chord 1. Now that you've highlighted everything that you need to bring to your attention in your music, you can now take that information and use it to create warm-up exercises that will actually benefit you in learning this piece. So many people do warm-up exercises, but they are unrelated to the music that they are learning. It's so much more efficient and effective to take those challenging bits of the piece or those patterns that we want to consolidate and make our own warm-up exercises to help us improve not only our technique, but help us improve our ability and speed of being able to learn this piece. If you're looking for some more smart practice tips that work, I've got a free guide for you. It includes 10 tips that definitely work. They're tried and tested. Annotating your music is one of them, but there are 9 others. So you'll see on the screen right now a link. Please do click that and download your free guide. While you're there, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one where I'm going to show you how to take all that information that we've annotated within our score and create some warm-up exercises that will help us learn those notes even quicker. Bye for now.